Clara, lots to get through. Got a lot in the book. So we'll have a quick skim through and hopefully have a bit more of a conversation at some point about all the different ideas you got going here. Um, yeah, so how I'd be talking about a Year 12 sketchbook would be thinking about how many of these things on the outside of your mind map might actually be visualized, might actually be explored, but you've done that. You've moved on well with that. I think the photographs you've taken are really excellent, and having more pages devoted to them could be the thing. Possibly having some A4 on separate pages. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. Um, Transferring those into more kind of isolated pieces, and then trying to create the mood of a piece more with the lighting. I think some possibly even some further refinement upstairs in the dark room could be in order to actually make the whole area of the book a little bit more focused on the photographic outcomes that you have. Very much appreciate having other people involved. I think this is excellent. Having finding your own way with work, I think you've really managed to pull that off. In fact, generally, over the course of the sketchbook, you've got enough starting points, I think, to really feed into a lot of what happens over the course of this year. It may be that fresh starting points are not even necessary, although I think you kind of naturally want to move on to other things because you've got a number of areas where you could really just stay with them and develop the ideas. Terrific pages, the detail and the tone. Um, I would say making some more jumps like you've done here into exploring quite unexpected things is hitting the higher end of marks most definitely, where you are you've got a very independent insight into what you're doing and thinking about how you can develop what you've done, and good contextual connections as well. Um, I'm wondering whether there's some one of the projects could be taken to a kind of different level of complexity. Whether there's something that could be more ambitious, a little bit like the section project, like the lino cut and the drawing, and I mean they're all excellent. I kind of don't want to be spending this time just singing the praises of all the things that you've done, but you have done a really superb job. There's no question. Um, I'm wondering whether what I mean by being more ambitious is something which is more like a kind of a group of work, or kind of a body work, something where you sustain a particular focus. I mean, like you've done here, there could be a kind of a group of work produced. I mean, there is a group of work produced, but something outside the book, possibly even some kind of narrative-based piece. There are certain areas. I mean, we could look at the certain areas of pastel. You could kind of work into that some more, extend the way you're using the pastel. You know, you could look at it from the point of view of whether perhaps the print that you did early on could be improved in terms of the sorts of things, sorts of outcomes you get. I'd like to think early on that there'd be some more kind of satisfaction. I think felt. So I think you weren't quite satisfied with the way that turned out, and I think rightly so. Maybe there's a kind of combination of printing techniques that you could do, or perhaps there's a particular focus that you could do to do with maybe the state of mind, perhaps, of the earlier photographs, some of the early darker photographs. Perhaps there's some sort of recreation of that, or maybe it's the format. Maybe there needs to be a kind of a longer sort of narrative to it. I think the bottom line is to keep kind of searching for ways in which you can join up uh, separate aspects of your work. Yeah, I'd make these other bits finished. I think if you see these all the way through, then that will really be the icing on the cake. It'll be like there's no stone left unturned. And so I would put the time in. I think in terms of the colour, that it's very well invested if you're spending time really looking at particular mixtures of colour palettes as we have later on. I think that's a very wise move. The Sigmar Polka and the Kusama and the Liechtenstein and so on. That leads very nicely into all these dotted pieces that you do. There could be some element of this also, which is slightly kind of throwaway, which could be interesting. A sort of area where something is slightly um, where an image is found, or it's incorporated. I'm just thinking of the right word. One where you take something a little bit out of context and appropriate it. That's the word. So you're appropriating it. You use it. You borrow it, and perhaps the way it's used then becomes important. Anyway, excellent little ranges of photographs and the kind of miniaturization. And then this interesting little look at the Rembrandt. I think he is most definitely worth a look. There's currently a show on, which is what definitely want to go and see. Maybe even looking at things very very close up. There's the Google art project where they've done very high resolution scans of famous paintings, and you can actually zoom incredibly close to them and see how the paint is all layered up, and possibly making connections between Rembrandt and maybe some of the more abstract Turners, where the paint is manipulated in a certain way. And I think that that could be something that would be worth looking at, getting into a little bit more into the oil paint, into the way that the medium sort of moved and shifted about. Um, yeah, Giacometti. I wonder whether these could be also photographic outcomes in some way. If these were photocopied onto A4 or A3 and then developed in the darkroom by just placing the paper straight over the light sensitive photo paper, you get an image that would be like what you've drawn here, but slightly cloudy. Could be rather interesting. Um, Abstraction. And this terrific little group of pieces you do, quite a surprise. You've just gone away and really looked into these things. Fantastic. So I'm thinking that there are many things that have been opened up during the course of last year, and so it could be a question of uh, adding, supplementing, and so on as you're doing. But it could also mean joining things up as well. I think some more colour would be good to see. Some use of oil paint and the modelling with the clay. I think it's extending out into different areas and possibly also digital work. Maybe the some digital manipulation of some of the images you've done, making half-tone images in Photoshop might be an interesting way to explore the dots, for example. There's some good videos on Sigmar Polka actually painting each individual dot of some of his paintings. So lots to think about. Well done. Think outside the book more, I would, as well. So you're producing pieces outside the book, just like with your very, very ambitious print, which I still think needs some more prints taken off it. And we'll get into the etching as well. So exciting things ahead, but keep working away like this. Keep pushing yourself, borrowing equipment, adding to what you do, and it will just build and build into an exciting group of work. So well done.